what can be said about the original Madagascar? You've all seen it at some point, unless you're one of those kids that saw The Wild instead. That was me. Madagascar 1 is a classic. It's not one of my favorite Dreamworks films, but it's still really funny. Like, I forgot how funny some of these scenes really were. Funny story, I actually remember I got the DVD from a GameStop of all places. Yeah, GameStop for some reason sold DVDs back then. It was weird. But the DVD also had that iconic Penguin's Christmas Caper short, so that's pretty epic.
Kaboom!
Yes, Rico. Kaboom.
But yeah, Madagascar 1 is still really funny. We've all seen it. The video game, though, I've actually never played before. I did hear about it, and by heard about it, I mean that one reference to it in the Over the Hedge game. But besides that, I just never saw this game back then. It wasn't until way later that I learned more about it. What was really surprising was who developed it. It was Toys for Bob. Yeah, like the Skylanders, the Spiral Reignited trilogy, and Crash 4 Toys for Bob. That was really interesting finding out. Again, I love seeing the early beginnings of some of these developers. The game was released on the PS2, GameCube, and Xbox like usual, plus PC, and thankfully, unlike the last two Dreamworks games, it's the exact same game on PC. I should also mention that while it was also on the Game Boy Advance, it was actually the first Dreamworks game on the DS, so hey, that's something. Once again, I'm not covering the handheld versions in this video, but I just wanted to point that fact out. Not much else to say on its development, so let's just dive into it. By the way, I'm playing the Xbox version in case you're wondering. I love the title screen, how it transitions through the jungle with that nice music. So much personality, I absolutely love it. So the game, of course, follows the events of the film, with some new stuff added here and there. Not a whole lot, but stuff like how Marty escaped, some stuff with the lemurs, and actually making the Fusa big threats in this game. In the movie, the Fusa had, like 2 minutes of screen time, but in the game, they actually make them a bigger threat with how much they appear. In fact, the final boss is literally against the Fusa King. We also have some one-off characters that weren't in the movie. You got a bunch of the zoo animals, this hunter guy you see a few times, and of course some animals in the jungle too. Again, nothing super crazy, but it's nice to see them flesh out the world a bit more. I gotta say though, the presentation is a mixed bag. I think the overall environments look pretty good, but the models look more like plushies whenever I see them. They aren't ugly per se, but some characters just look like they've seen some stuff. The animation between the characters look pretty awkward too. I definitely think Shrek 2 and heck, I'll even admit the Shark Tale game did a much better job in this area. However, this game is so funny. The writing in this game is pretty top notch, which I find really notable as, I'll be honest, as much as I defend a lot of these licensed games, there weren't a ton that I found very funny. Charming, absolutely, but not very funny unless it's unintentional. Like for instance, the Pixar games I did. While I found a lot of them very charming, I wouldn't say they were very funny. I love the original Cars game, but I wouldn't call the dialogue in that game funny per se. But this game, no, the jokes just hit so hard, especially if you're a big fan of the movie.
My biohazard disinfectant team is late, again! You just can't get good help. And they're unionized, so just try to complain.
Me, please, hurt, don't.
Oh no, he's a masochist!
It helps that the voice acting is pretty good for the most part. With the exception of Skipper's voice actor, none of the voice actors from the movie came back for this game, but for the most part, they do a pretty good job. You'd really have to listen to hear a difference. Well, with the exception of King Julian's voice, it sounds nothing like how he did in the film. It's not even close.
Oh yeah, the party, it's all coming back to me now. Sometimes the immense pressure of being your king causes me to forget the smallest of details. What time do we plan on kicking this thing off?
Well,
the music is pretty good though. It's a lot of atmospheric jungle music, but it's nice. My personal favorite track is definitely the Tiki Golf theme. That song is so good. So we have an action-adventure platformer here. Your goal is to do whatever objectives the level has you do. Unlike usual though, let's actually go through each stage one by one since there's only 11 stages in total. By the way, I love the level select here. How it's this giant map, plus how it moves and shows the locations of each level. It's really neat. The King of New York is the first stage, and it's pretty simple since Well, it's the first stage, so it isn't going to be very demanding. It's here you'll be introduced to the power card system. Find the 3 corresponding cards for a character and you get a new ability. You get stuff like Marty being able to kick, Alex having the ability to double jump, or Melman spinning like a helicopter, etc. This sounds really cool. I just wish you can go back to a previous stage with the new power-up, since you can only use it from that stage you get from, and all the other stages afterwards, not any of the ones before. For example, something like the claws you get for Alex, you get this power up in the final stage, and you can only use it in the final stage. That's such a big missed opportunity. But anyways, back to the first stage. Again, it's a pretty simple tutorial level. You do stuff like Alex jumping through rings, Gloria raising some ostriches, and the penguins fishing. But it's fun. I think it's a nice opening stage. Heck, there's even these little arcade mini games you can play during this stage, and the other 2 New York stages, so that's pretty neat. Speaking of which, the next stage is Marty's Escape. It's a stealth level and it's pretty easy, but it's nice to see how Marty escaped from the zoo, as in the movie we never actually see how he got out. NY Street Chase is really fun though. It's just getting to the end, but it's a lot of fun platforming and avoiding all the cars on the road. It's really frantic, but a lot of fun. Penguin Mutiny is another stealth stage, and it's actually the only stage in the entire game where you fully play as the penguins, not counting the fishing minigame in the first level, which I find really odd. I like this level though. I much prefer this stealth here to the last one with Marty. Skipper is really fun to control, and I really dig the setting a lot. Mysterious Jungle is an Alex only level, and it's decent. You're mostly just doing errands for the animals, but it's fine. Also, quick note, the game controls really well. I like that all the characters feel really distinct from each other. That's an aspect I really enjoy. Save the Lemurs I wasn't into very much. In fact, it might be my least favorite stage in the whole game. I found the climb pretty boring, and it was really confusing where you had to go. I didn't like this stage at all. Oh, and this wind section was really annoying too. Jungle Banquet is pretty interesting. The 4 main characters have their own little activity they gotta do, and it's pretty fun to utilize all 4 characters for one stage, as before, it was usually just one character you played as, with maybe 1 or 2 times you switched. Coming of Age is it's not bad. I like the whole aesthetic of the stage, but I just found most of it pretty forgettable. I wasn't really into the little slingshot mini games with this stage, and the Gloria section at the end was just okay. It wasn't an awful level, just so forgettable though. Back to the Beach was pretty fun though. Like Jungle Banquet, you gotta switch between each character for them to do an activity. This time to make a wooden Statue of Liberty. Also, I gotta say, the NPCs you encounter in this game are strange to say the least.
You want to battle? You must be crazy. My technique is the best. Your style is weak and undeveloped. My pupils can defeat you.
Is that ridiculous accent real?
No, of course not. But you will still lose. Number 1, defeat him.
Yes, that is a real line. Marty to the Rescue was pretty fun. I really dig the aesthetic of this level, and the slide sections are pretty fun. Finally, we have the final battle, which is just the final boss fight, of course. A pretty fun one though. It's a nice ending to the whole game. And that's all the levels. Honestly, a pretty solid selection. I enjoyed pretty much 80% of the stages. Even the weaker levels like Save the Lemurs weren't that bad to play through. In terms of collectibles, you have these coins scattered throughout the stage, and if you collect enough of them, you can spend them at the shop. You can get some cosmetics, which actually appear in the cutscenes, that's pretty cool, some cheats, and a couple bonus minigames. I didn't spend much time with the minigames, but they're pretty neat for what they are. You get a shuffleboarding game, a dance minigame, and this really fun tiki golf minigame, which was definitely my favorite one. I really enjoyed my time with this one, however I do have a couple issues with it. I think my biggest problem with the game is how short it is. You might notice that this video is a little shorter than usual. Well, that's just because of how short this whole game is. It's definitely the shortest console Dreamworks game I've played so far, and that's kinda disappointing. It really should have been much longer. It also doesn't do anything super new that hasn't already been done in other games. Again, I think the game graphically doesn't look that great in a lot of places, and yeah, there isn't much depth here, but it's still a pretty solid game. The cutscenes are really enjoyable, the music is really nice, the levels are varied and are pretty solid for the most part, the stuff you can unlock are neat, and there's just so much charm in this game. Toys for Bob did a really solid job nailing the tone from the film. It's not gonna wow you or anything, but it's a good game, and I definitely would recommend it, especially if you're a big fan of the movie. One of the better Dreamworks games I've played so far. Now, before anyone asks, yes, I do know Toys for Bob did make a sequel to this game based on the second film, and we'll talk about it in the future. However, that is not our next game. No, our next game is the Over the Hedge video game, the last big Dreamworks game for the 6th generation of consoles. Did they end the generation with a bang? We'll find out in the next Dreamworks video. If you like this video, give it a like, and if you're new here to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Plus, let me know down below if you've played the Madagascar game and what do you think of it. I hope you all have an amazing day and take care. Bye!